Good afternoon, everyone. It's Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. It's Monday, and I want to have a very in-depth discussion today on how the establishment divides and rules. I think it's really important for us to really understand the dynamics of what's taking place, particularly in the United States, and then trace it back to the origins of where all of this comes from, and then talk about how we have a solution for overcoming this. Otherwise, what's going to happen, and it is already happening, I'm going to give you an example as a case study, the Black Lives Matter guys facing off with the quote-unquote America First guys, and all of that is being promoted by the media as a way of hiding the real struggle that's taking place and the real victories that are happening of where working people are rising up against the power, profit, and control of these jabination mandates. So that's what we're going to talk about. So again, one of the things that we promote throughout the discussions that I share with you, throughout all the 1,000+ videos that I've done, is to educate all of you that we need to take a systems approach that goes beyond left and right, beyond black and white, where we unite working people for truth, freedom, and health. Let me repeat that again. Those four phrases, in many ways, really, in a very concise way, give a framework, a very solid framework on how we can actually start looking at what's going on in the world. So number one, beyond black and white, which means beyond the race wars that the establishment tries to divide people by. Beyond left and right, which means looking at things of what the real problem is and what the real solution is. Then one of the critical things we'll see is most of what the elites are doing through the power of censorship, which is really controlled by the government, which our lawsuit was the first to expose in a powerful way, the domestic censorship infrastructure, is that censorship is a way of ensuring that we never really ever have discourse or real debate on anything. So it really puts, left and right forces or pro and anti against each other. And this divide and rule really serves to ensure the forces of power, profit, and control survive versus the forces of truth, freedom, and health. So our movement, which I want all of you to get educated on, is really to, first of all, teach people that without a foundational understanding of how a system works and what are the system's approaches, we're going to have so many different people just clashing against each other. And the media and the establishment will promote those. They actually love race war. They love left and right fighting against each other. They love the Republican Democrat theater. And they do not want everyday working people uniting on anything. So what I'm going to talk about today is this. Some of you may have seen this. And by the way, some of this articles may not get covered in the mainstream news media, but this was a front page story article that was out in the British news covering what's going on in the United States. And this was what the article had. Let me bring this up. And the article had on the front page, as you can see here, Antifa and BLM activists clash with far-right anti-vaccine mandate protesters outside, what did it say? Oops, let's go here. Some ad came up. It essentially outside Gracie Mansion, okay? Which is the mayor, Bill de Blasio's there it is, activists with far-right anti-vaccine mandate protesters outside New York City's Gracie Mansion. Now, what they don't tell you is that became a frontline news. But embedded in this article is the fact that over 164,000 municipal workers actually showed up, okay? And so most of this article just talks about, white nationalists, quote unquote, versus black nationalists, okay? But they don't talk about the fact, I mean, they had to cover it because it's so huge. As you can see right here, there was 160,000 working people, black, white, of all different races, who showed up to fight against the jab mandates, okay? And that shows up right here. So let me bring this up. And so you can see that right here, right? So 160,000 municipal employees, including cops, firefighters, and sanitation workers, rallied outside de Blasio's house. But, there's only a few pictures of this, right? But the entire article is really about BLM. And we're also going to learn very quickly, there's two BLMs in the United States. there's one BLM, which is a national organization, which is run by people who are using it essentially to profit for themselves. And then there's a BLM of Greater New York run by a guy called Hank Newsom, and we'll talk about that. But what you're going to realize from the events I'm going to share with you is that the establishment wants race war. They want people speaking about black nationalism versus white nationalism, black on white. But they do not want to show the unity that is emerging among working people, because of our movement has consistently put forward for the last 3 years that working people need to unite. We need to build a bottoms-up movement, that working people need to start striking. Our Truth, Freedom, and Health movement has, firefighters from New York as a part of it. We have, Southwest airline workers. We have all people of all different backgrounds are joining our movement to understand this core theoretical framework, which is we need to take a systems approach beyond left and right. So for those of you, and I'll come back to this, do not know what that framework is, I'm just going to play a quick video so all of you understand the foundations of what the Truth, Freedom, and Health movement is about. So, because I want all of you to recognize
our country.
I want all of you to recognize that if we do not take a systems approach, we're never going to win anything. We're going to have a divided states of America. And I'll tell you why America is important in the world equation. And we'll come back to this, but the key thing is America, when you look at the long march of human history, the concept of the First Amendment and the Second Amendment was a serious blow to the monarchy, to the elites. And the attacks that we're seeing about dividing people left and right, black and white, is ultimately a part of a neo-colonialist move, version 2.0, and I'll talk about this, about essentially the British crown and the monarchy coming back. And we'll talk about that. I'm going to do a series of videos. I'm not going to be able to cover all of this. So today's video is a beginning of what I really call the Divide and Rule series, because I want everyone to understand the establishment knows how to divide and rule people. They do not want working people uniting. So let me play this video, and all of you, every Monday evenings, every Wednesday nights, every Thursdays, all of the Truth, Freedom, and Health warriors come together. It's an opportunity for you guys to directly interact with me one-on-one. We do on our own platform. It's not Zoom. We use our own platform so we can have live interactions in a private social media setting. So, but first of all, I want all of you to get training to go beyond left and right. You need to get the right theoretical chops. So let me play this for you so everyone's clear what the theory is. So here we go.
We have allowed our country to be taken over from within, and the end goal is you will have a homogenized world where we will become slaves, because there is a condition among the elites that really thinks they're better than you, deep down inside them, that you don't deserve the freedoms you have. They don't. This reality is what people need to wake up to, and we need to all unite working people. There's only one movement that can do that. And that is the movement that we started creating here in Massachusetts, the movement for truth, freedom, and health. Look, I've been a student of politics since I was a 4-year-old kid, studying revolutionary movements, left wing, right wing. There's a physics, there's a nuclear science to destroying the establishment. To build a bridge, you need to understand Newton's equation. You need to understand the laws of gravity. You need to understand Poisson's ratio. There is a way to build a revolution. And that's why I put this together. My goal is to train an army of truth, freedom, and health leaders. We don't need followers like social media. We need leaders, but they need training, because the educational system does not teach them history, nothing. So in 3 hours, that's what I've started doing. That's the solution. We got to train people. First, with understanding what a system is. The second is understanding the interconnection between truth, freedom, and health. Freedom is the ability to move freely, communicate freely, right? Talk freely. Without freedom, you cannot convert ideas, hypothesis into truth, which is science. And without freedom, you can't really get to truth. And without truth, you make up fake problems and fake solutions, which means you destroy our health. And without health, which is the infrastructure of us and our body, you can't fight for freedom. Third concept is it has to be bottoms up. Working people, people who work uniting. And what the right wing has done is whenever you say working people unite, that must be communist. Meanwhile, they've let the Democrats run unions, which suppress workers, completely corrupt. But when you look at the arc of American history, it's been when working people came up. We need to go local. Every solution I'm coming up with as a part of this movement, we're giving the science, which is the truth, and then we tell people what they can do on the ground. Like with election fraud, you don't need to wait for some lawyer. Our goal is to train people, Dave, to go local, to go local, to go local, fight locally. Forget lawyers, forget politicians, forget celebrities. You got to learn politics, and there is a science to it. They lock us down, we should be ready to shut them down. And the fourth part of this principle is a not so obvious establishment. So when you look at a system, there's always something that disturbs you from getting to your goal. Well, the biggest disturbance is a not so obvious establishment, which are those people who claim they're for you, on the left and the right. The Al Sharptons who tell black people I'm for you. The Tucker Carlsons. Do you think any true anti-establishment person will ever be on Fox or CNN? I don't think so. They both mislead working people back into the establishment. Without this solid understanding of political physics and theory, you're screwed. You're going to follow on the left wing, Bernie Sanders. Oh, he said something. Or Robert Kennedy. Scumbags. Or you're going to follow, some right-wing talk show host. They're not going to lead us to liberation. It's us. And that political physics, it's a nuclear science of change. Bottoms up. We have to organize to understand that there is people who talk a good game and then look at what they actually do, left and right. I'm sorry, Sean Hannity may say some good things, but I don't see the urgency in his voice to get something done, and it can only come when you weaponize yourself with the right knowledge. You need to be able to identify a rat. Christ didn't go after the Romans, right? It was the Pharisees and the Sadducees who screwed him up. His own quote-unquote people. And that's where we're at. So these four concepts I've built into a curriculum. People can go to bashiva.com, and it's an educational program. We need to train people in political theory. You need to have physics, and I've created that curriculum. People need to get educated. We need to get educated fast. And within a half an hour, I can teach people. 2 years of MIT control systems, I teach people those concepts. Then I apply it, anyone can understand it. And then you say, oh, I got to build a bottoms-up movement. They have to get politically astute, and then they have to go locally and act, not sit there on social media. They have to act locally, defy locally, do civil obedience locally, but with knowledge on how to build a movement. And the Senate campaign's expanded to the Movement for Truth, Freedom, and Health, and they can find it on V as in Victor, A, Shiva, vashiva.com, so people can sign in. They can get access to a bunch of videos. If they want to take a course and become a Truth, Freedom, Health leader, I offer a full scholarship there, but we want people to make a commitment that they'll study, that they'll get certified, that they'll go do activities on the ground. So go to VA Shiva, Victory America Shiva, vashiva.com.
Sorry. Sorry, the sound wasn't on. Let me begin. How long did we lose, John, on sound?
Pretty much from your at least to when you were starting that video.
Okay, so let me go back. I think the sound wasn't there. So I just finished the video for those people. So what I was sharing, the reason that video, is everything all right now, John? The reason that video that I just played for you important because it actually gives you the solution, okay? It gives you the solution of where we need to go. We need to go beyond left and right. And every one of you, please go to truthfreedomhealth.com and join the movement that we're building. But it begins not with just, random passion is important, but just random passion. But it begins with you getting educated. So what I wanted to share, where I lost you because of the sound, sorry about that. I'm back, is the following. One of the important things here is that the essence of America, when you look at the long arc of human history, was that America came up with an experiment, which was the First Amendment and the Second Amendment, that you could directly have a relationship. You could directly have a relationship with your creator. You could pursue your dreams independent of anyone in between. Okay? And that was the essence. And whatever religion that happened to be, whatever spirituality that happened to be, you could have that direct connection. Hey, John, is the sound okay in terms of no hissing, right? Okay. And so the First Amendment and the Second Amendment were brought to the forefront so you could speak, you could debate in that pursuit of happiness, right? And you could also have the Second Amendment to protect you. Now, just think about what we're talking about. When you look at the arc of human history, for most of human history, except for the period where there was a hunter-gatherer period, there was some level of, equality. But the predominant part of human history was a king held people as serfs, and you worked for your king. And the entire concept here was that the king had a direct connection to God, and the rest of us had to pay obeisance to the king. Okay, this was the essence of the monarchy concept. Particularly, some of you may still know the Queen of England is still head of the Anglican Church, right? So the concept of in the recent history of the Americas, the Queen or the king had a direct connection to God. Therefore, all of our, we bowed down to the Queen. Okay. So the concept of the First Amendment did not even exist in this concept at all, or the Second Amendment. So when America was created, when the American Revolution took place, what was profound about it was the First Amendment and the Second Amendment, because it gave precedent to the individual being able to pursue their dreams with their own sense of spirituality. This was quite profound. All right. Ever since the American Revolution took place, one of the things we'll go and talk about in more detail. By the way, is everyone okay with the sound? Sound okay? Let's see. Is the sound all right, John? People are still saying no sound. Is that true? Lucia saying no sound. I don't think that's true. I think we have sound, right? John? Yeah, someone's saying it's okay now. Thanks, Jamie. So the essence of this was that since 1776, the biggest enemy of the American experiment has been the British Crown. And I'll repeat that again. The biggest enemy of the American experiment has been the British Crown. Repeat it for a third time. The biggest enemy of the American experiment has been the British Crown. So who was it that actually burned down the White House? It was Britain. Who was it that actually incited the Civil War? It was Britain. Who was it? And I'll talk about this. Each of these will be videos that are coming. You're going to learn it was Britain that actually incited Germany into war, World War I. And it was Britain which got us into World War II. Britain lost a lot of ground when it lost the Americas. And ever since 1776, the British Crown has been playing a long game to try to bring America back into its fold. And part of that was what occurred in 2017, 2018, which was Brexit. Brexit was a big move that the British made to try to bring America under its fold. And again, we'll discuss each one of these in another video. But the entire British, and by the way, I want to separate the people of Britain. You know, the businesses that are in Britain, very good people. I do business with them. I know a lot of people in England and Britain, different than the British Crown. And you'll also come to understand that the Queen of England is not just a titular position. The Queen's name goes on, she has to sign off on every bill. She still controls most of the Commonwealth countries. You know, she can replace the government in Australia anytime she wants. So we have come to this illusion to think that this is just some ceremonial position. But the bottom line is Britain, the British Crown, has been extremely eager to come back into control and bring back the monarchy. And the First Amendment stands in their way. As we showed in our lawsuit, it was the Atlantic Council, funded by, you know, the elites in Britain, which wants to eliminate and destroy, which has frankly worked very hard to create the censorship infrastructure in the United States. So how does this all relate to BLM and Antifa? Well, anyone who studies the machinations of the British elites, it has been always about divide and rule, divide and rule. And divide and rule gets executed through the power of censorship. Why do I say that? Well, you can have people at each other's throats if you do not allow open discourse and debate on any topic. So you take climate change, everyone's, you know, is at each other's throats on it. You take the issue of election fraud in the United States. You take the issue of the jab or the masks issue or all these mandates. You take every major fundamental issue that's going on right now, and it is intended to have people fighting against each other, particularly race. So when I saw this recent article that came out, let me bring it up. I'm going to show you this recent article that came up right here. All right. So I saw this article over the weekend, and this article is an article that was posted in the Daily Mail. It says Antifa and BLM activists. Let me bring this up here. It says Antifa and BLM activists clash with far-right anti-vaccine mandate protesters outside New York City's Gracie Mansion. Okay? And you notice these are the top 4 bullet points of the article. Nowhere does it mention in this article that this big event actually included the real protests of 160,000, nearly 200,000 American working people, black, white, of all colors, who showed up to fight the jab mandates, okay? So that's what was actually occurring. But what did the news promote? Divide and rule. The news promoted this, okay? The news promoted this, okay? Daily Mail, by the way, is a publication out of Britain, okay? Antifa and BLM activists clash with far-right anti-vaccine mandate protesters outside New York Gracie Mansion. And if you look at this article, it's got people on both sides, right? You know, pitting up against each other, okay? One side, and I want to play this quick video for you here. Let me play this here. Okay, so what do you see there? You see one group, quote unquote, America First, which is about American nationalism, America being first, and some people branded them as white nationalists, against a BLM group. Okay, and we're going to also learn today there are 2 BLM groups, okay? And this other BLM group is pro-jab mandates, and the America First group is against vaccine mandates, okay? But the bottom line is this is black nationalism versus white nationalism, okay? That's the way that the press wants us to see it. And the distraction here is that gets put to the forefront. So people seeing this will say, oh, these group of nationalists are for, against vaccine mandates, and these people are for them. And they'll see it as a black on white thing. In fact, when you really go through this article and you see it a little more carefully, as I shared in the earlier part of it, this is what was the big thing that was going on, okay? This was the big news that was why people showed up. And you can see here, 160,000 municipal employees, including cops, firefighters, and sanitation workers, rallied outside de Blasio's residence to protest the vaccine mandate ahead of the city's October 28th deadline for city workers to get the shot, okay? So that was really the big news. But what did the news do is they promoted this left-right, this pro-anti divide, okay? And it gets even more interesting. There's a guy called Dan Bongino, who really is a Fox News, quote unquote, right supporter. He then put on a guy shortly thereafter, a guy called Hank Newsom, okay? Some of you may know recently in New York, a guy called Eric Adams, a former policeman officer, was elected mayor, black guy, okay? Well, there is another Black Lives Matter group. Again, I can't overemphasize, there is Black Lives sort of Matter United States, but there's another guy called Hank Newsom who started a group called Black Lives Matter Greater New York City. In fact, the Black Lives Matter, the big group, wants nothing to do with him, okay? And by the way, this bigger group, Black Lives Matter, which you typically see associated with that big group, has people have found out that that organization has been taking people's money, buying homes for themselves, very corrupt organization. Now, Hank Newsom's group came in a very interesting way. He actually spoke at a pro-Trump rally, okay? And the Black Lives Matter greater, not the greater, the national group denounced him, okay? But he met with Eric Adams, and I went and watched the whole 30-minute video over the weekend with the mayor of New York. Him and his, group went to the mayor's office and they met with the mayor. And what did they tell him? If you watch the whole video, they're like, basically, they don't have all the answers, but they're sort of heading in the right direction, in my view, meaning saying, hey, we need infrastructure in the inner cities. We need opportunities for Black people. Poverty is a source of crime, okay? And he says, why don't we put in places, centers where Black people can get good food and have proper sanitation? Infrastructure, infrastructure, infrastructure. Again, all of you, this is why I encourage everyone to go become Truth, Freedom, and Health warriors. Go to truthfreedomhealth.com because you'll understand that real health comes from infrastructure. So that's what he's talking to the mayor about. After the meeting, when he comes out, and he says, look, if we don't address these issues and if you continue to just use police just to harass Black people, there will be riots, there will be bloodshed, etc. That was a small snippet of that long conversation. But what did the media do? The media, and this is why, I don't care for the left or right media because they're all looking for views. They don't really want to share the truth. And I want to share with you what this guy, Dan Bongino, did, okay? He look at the headline here. Dan Bongino, BLM activist who threatened bloodshed, clash over riding violence. Answer the question, okay? So again, you should go watch this, okay? It's a ridiculous thing. And I'm really, really, have very little respect for this guy Bongino after listening to this, okay? If you go watch this, it is basically Hank Newsom's, and I probably have differences with him, but he's basically trying to say, look, we need infrastructure. He said, I was saying that there will be riots, this kind of stuff, if, the big issues are not addressed. And Dan Bongino saying, you must, renounce violence. You must renounce violence. He's saying, I'm not going to renounce violence, self-defense, but that he's taking a long discussion and he's reducing it all about violence, Black on white, people versus the cops or Black people versus cops. And that's what we have going on. We have the news media on the left, Fox News, and the news media on the right, both trying to promote Black versus white. This is divide and rule. And on every issue, this is taking place. Pro-jab, anti-jab, pro-vax, anti-vax, pro-mask, anti-mask, pro-climate change, anti-climate change. And you know who's profiting from all this when we don't really address the real issues? Is the elites. And all of this is being done. The way that they're executing this divisiveness is through censorship. Because when you have censorship, none of us can really have any actual discourse, okay? So none of us can get in discourse. So someone says, don't get in bed with BLM, okay? So this is sort of, again, sorry, this is an ignorant statement. No one's talking about getting in bed with BLM or not BLM. Again, you're missing the point. The point is those in power want to promote divisiveness on every issue. So huge 160,000, 200,000 people come to Gracie Mansion, working people, which our movement has been supporting, striking, organizing. And instead of focusing in on that, the news focuses on BLM versus America First. And that was a very small piece of this 160,000, 200,000 protest, because they do not want working people uniting. They rather put forward, oh, blacks and whites are fighting against each other. Pro-vax, anti-vax, differences, without going down to the real issue of public health, without going down to the real issue, which our movement singularly focus on, which is this, that the jab mandates, the mask mandates, the climate change carbon tax, all of these ultimately are about the elites escalating their war on working people. Over the last 50 years, there's 2 American pies right now. You have 500 billionaires who've doubled their wealth during the pandemic. You have working people's wages. There's 2 American pies, one for the 5% whose wages have explosively grown, and the other 95% of American working people whose wages have shrunk by 50% or more, okay? So none of that is discussed. The idea is to have working people fighting against each other. And when working people start uniting, you diminish those victories. The movement for truth, freedom, and health, our movement, is the only movement on the planet right now that has the right political framework, the right systems framework to bring people together. Without this, I can assure you that we will be back to colonialism, okay? Because, and we'll discuss this in the videos to come, you will see the belly of the real beast here. You'll also realize that Meghan Markle, whatever her name is, or Doofus Harry, coming to the United States is not coincidence. It is about an era of neo-colonialism we're entering. And that era begins with destroying the First Amendment, which it has been destroyed through the domestic censorship infrastructure. It begins with pitting black against white, left against right on every issue, Republican, Democrats, the theater of that. And it ends with economic devastation. It ends with enslaving working people through power, profit, and control. That's what's actually taking place. And I hope all of you recognize, I wanted to start with this BLM America first, right? Because the reality is, these are not the substantive issues. Because when we really go peel away the layers, what we find is it is the attack on working people, black and white and brown and yellow, all over the world that's been taking place. And without understanding this core essential issue, we're always going to be moved by the media into thinking the world is made up of left and right, black and white, etc. So let me take some questions here. Someone said the Democrats are absolutely ruining this country at record speed. Yeah, look, it is the collusion of both Democrats and Republicans. In Massachusetts, it was the Republican establishment that stole our election in Massachusetts. It wasn't the Democrats. Democrats and Republicans are one. So you have to recognize Democrats and Republicans are one. Both of them work together. Operation Warp Speed was done during a Republican president. The big pharma bailouts took place during a Republican president. Obama saved the big banks. Trump saved big pharma. All right. One needs to recognize that the United States, the goal of the elites is to rip the United States apart. It's to rip it to shreds through division. And the only way to come together is to take a systems approach. And I mean this very seriously. A systems approach will reveal to you in any situation what is the real issue? When you look at climate change right now, it's all propaganda. You take a very complex climate system, you reduce it to one variable called CO2. That's called reductionism, which is the opposite of a systems approach. And then you have people arguing about that, when ultimately, when you really look at the issue, which we've talked about in a number of our videos, the real issue here, it's about a few set of people who are going to become multi-trillionaires with carbon tax and selling carbon credits. And the vast majority of humanity, working people, are going to be enslaved with more cost of product, and small businesses are going to be further strapped. It's about carbon tax. And it's about the fact that they are violating science by not practicing the scientific method, violating truth. They don't allow freedom of debate. If you talk about that, you get thrown off Facebook or Google, et cetera, right? And on every issue, even you take the issue of the medical freedom issue, no one discusses the fact that this is not about pro-vax or anti-vax. This is fundamentally about public health. And public health has always come through, the real solution has been infrastructure. When we put the right infrastructure in, people's lives got healthy. It hasn't been through these reductionist solutions of putting a diaper on your face or getting a jab. It's been through infrastructure. Again, that is a systems approach. So I want to encourage all of you, if you're serious, I don't care whether you're Republican, Democrat, left or right, the issue is we stand at a very important point, particularly in world and American history, is that if working people do not recognize who their real enemy is, and if you see more and more stuff like this nonsense, because these guys are making money, Fox News makes money off this stuff, right? And also if you recognize that this thing that took place over the weekend and how the media put forward, in this case with this, everything is about, the Antifa, BLM versus the far right. I mean, that's the headline, right? But the reality is it was 160,000 workers showed up. And the media on both sides is working very, very hard to diminish what's going on when working people. Our movement has repeatedly said that working people need to come together. We have every Monday evenings, we run a 3-hour class to educate you as a part of the Truth, Freedom, and Health movement. How do we build that movement? Number two, every Wednesdays, I do a live Q&A we're literally training students. On Thursdays, we have an open house. But in our movement, we have consistently said that working people need to form bottoms-up movements, and they need to get ready to strike and exercise their power. And that's what we see happening. Our movement has had significant influence on these strikes and efforts that are going on. And yes, the credit goes to a systems approach. So that's what I want to encourage you all. Now, let me just finish up with this other news story that I think you'll like. Some of you may know there was a news story in CNN, and it was in a couple of places. Let me bring this up about, here we go. Okay. So this was the Washington Post equivalent. Let me bring it says a record number of Americans quit their jobs in September. Okay. And what this article was saying is, and you can read it, it says a record number of Americans are quitting their jobs. A record 4.4 million Americans quit their jobs in September as a sheer volume of available jobs is empowering workers to have their pick. Workers are quitting in search of better pay or better jobs, representing a fundamental shift in America's labor market. Okay. So that's in the Washington Post, right? One of the liberal elite newspapers, owned, by the way, by Amazon's Jeff Bezos, who treats his workers like dirt at Amazon. And we'll talk about that. And he has a major PR issue. Okay. So that appeared in the Washington Post. Now that article was put forward by a reporter, and this is where the ideology of that came from a reporter at CNN. Okay, so let's go to that article. Okay, so here's the CNN article. Here we go. Let me bring this up. All right, so here's a CNN article on this. All right. Oops, I'm sorry. That is the, sorry about that. This is a CNN article. Bring this up. So there was one article. Yeah, here we go. Okay. So this is the CNN article. All right. Here's a CNN article. All right. I'm sorry. This is the CNN article. There was a Washington Post article also. Sorry about that. But this is the CNN article, which I showed you. So it says a record 4.4 million working people quit their jobs. And it's basically not even talking anything about the fact that people have been leaving their jobs because they don't want to get jabbed. It ignores that. But what's interesting is this is how the media is such propaganda these days, is that I found an article a few days earlier. Let me bring that up, where CNN actually, in a different context, tells what's actually going on. Let me bring that up, okay? It says 72%. Here it is. It says 72%. Okay, let's bring this up. Okay, here's that article, okay? It says 72% of unvaccinated workers vow to quit if ordered to get vaccinated, okay? So this was on October 28th, almost, about 3 weeks ago, before that other article came out, randomly saying people are just quitting their jobs because there's more job openings, okay? But look at what this says. In this article, which was written 3 weeks ago, and this article, let me stop this here.
Workers.
Okay. And if you see this article here, what this article says is, right here, it says a large employer rule would apply. It says the Biden administration is drafting workplace safety rules that will require all businesses with 100 or more employees to mandate the vaccines for their employees or frequently test workers. The large employer rule would apply to about 80 million US workers, okay? Or 2/3 of all workers nationwide. If the surveyed unvaccinated workers followed through on their threats to quit, it would lead somewhere between 5% to 9%. So let's even take the lower number, 5%. Well, what's 5% of 80 million? It's about 4 million, okay? And guess what this article has, okay? So 5% of 80 million is 4 million. 3 weeks later, CNN does this other news story. 3 weeks later, CNN does this other news story, the one I first shared, which is saying, here we go, record number of people quit their jobs. And get what number are they using? 4 million workers quit their jobs in September. So this is a level of duplicity that's going on because working people are actually organizing. Working people are actually coming together. And this is a profound event. The last time this occurred in a big way in the United States was in the 1900s. And when that occurred, that's when the elites shuddered. And that's when working people in the country, and for that matter in the world, got significant gains. Our movement's position that working people unite beyond black and white, beyond left and right, is encouraging people to come together. So what you're seeing is working people are coming together, working people are being courageous, they're saying, I'm not going to get jabbed. As a worker, I'm the one you rely on. And that is the number, about 4 million people. Instead of giving credit where it's due, the propaganda machine of the elites is trying to say, well, suddenly there are all these jobs and people want to go take those jobs. So whether you look at what I shared with you with the BLM, America First, right, quote unquote clash, or whether you look at this news report, what is the interconnection here? The interconnection here is that the elites, those in power, do not want working people uniting. And when working people start to unite, as in the case of what occurred in front of de Blasio's mansion, 160,000 sanitation workers, police, and firefighters come together, they project a news as though BLM and the Antifa versus the America First. That is the main news. And same here with the CNN and Washington Post, as working people are actually taking charge of their own lives and they're saying, no, I'm not going to, I'm willing to take a hit because I want to stand by principle. They're trying to say, oh, suddenly jobs just opened up. And that's why people are quitting. So anyway, this will be a series we're going to do on beyond left and right, beyond black and white, and why working people should unite. Again, every Monday evenings, we do a live course. We've created a movement for truth, freedom, and health. I want to encourage all of you to take this system science approach. We've made it accessible, affordable, easy for everyone to get access to, but it's taken me 50 years to organize a curriculum so all of you can learn. But without this political theory, as I said in the previous video, it'll be very hard for you to figure out within all this morass of division that's being put on every issue, climate change, racism, censorship. You go down the list, the vax issue, the mask issue, racism, every issue, everyone is being divided in this country, election fraud, etc. And the only way forward is for us to have the right political and systems theory. So please, let's move beyond left and right. Let's move beyond black and white. Working people unite for truth, freedom, and health. Before I sign off, I want to play you a closing video which details out to you when you become a truth, freedom, and health warrior scholar. It's a warrior, which means you got to fight. You got to be activists on the ground. So we've created tools for that. But you also have to be a scholar. You have to take time and you have to learn the political theory. Otherwise, you will be bamboozled. The elites in power are studying system science. They know the science of systems. Without the knowledge of the science of systems, it will be like you have bows and arrows and they have nuclear weapons, okay? So I want to play this last video for everyone, or this closing video, because it'll share with you what we have to do in order for us to be successful. And it's a video, let me bring it up. I'm going to close out these other things right now. Consuming a lot of memory. Okay, so let me bring up this video. And I want you to understand that we've put a lot of effort into creating literally a platform for everyone to, here we go. Okay, so let me bring this, before I bring this up. So the goal is we need to educate people on a systems approach. The universities aren't going to do it. We have to do it in a way that everyone can do it on their own time, right? So I've taken 50 years worth of engineering systems knowledge and distilled it so everyone can learn it. That's one of the theoretical frameworks, how we get beyond black and white. The other thing is we've created our own social media tools in a private social media environment so you can meet other like-minded people, because we need to organize bottoms up. And the third thing is we need to meet with our neighbors, neighbor to neighbor, with conversations that go beyond left and right. And we've created tools for that. So it is a platform for truth, freedom, and health. You can see the ticker below, truthfreedomandhealth.com. But our goal is to build an international movement of truth, freedom, and health warrior scholars. We've had close to around 100,000 people now become members. We've had about 10, 20,000 people getting ready to go through, or gone through the warrior training program. But we need to build a movement where you start becoming leaders. We teach our neighbors, we bridge the gap, we unite. And that is, but the unity is not just a fake unity, which is what the liberal elites talk about. A real unity is based on system science. So let me play it with you, for you, this video, and I think it'll give you a real deep understanding of what we need to do and the tools that I've made available for everyone. So please take advantage of them. Thank you.
Hello, this is Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. Welcome to VA Shiva, the platform of education, technology, and activism, so you may raise your consciousness to win the truth, freedom, and health you need to create the future you deserve. The VA Shiva platform provides its truth, freedom, health warrior scholars the following 3 capabilities. Number 1, an ultimate education that is based on the science of systems. Number 2, technologies to empower you to take charge of your health, as well as social media tools, independent of big tech, so you can connect with other incredible truth, freedom, health warrior scholars equally dedicated like you to winning truth, freedom, and health. 3, instruments for activism, so you become a beacon of light in your online and offline community to educate others, growth and advancement. VA Shiva provides you the foundations of the science of systems, the ultimate education. The science of systems provides you the missing fundamental scientific knowledge to understand every system in and around you. The science of systems will enable you to uncover the real problem and real solution in any situation and on any issue. Concerning the educational component, first you will receive direct access access to me to learn the science of systems in my 3-hour live private online group class that I run every week. Second, you will have access to archived lectures so you can continue your education independent of me. Third, you can test your proficiency in learning the fundamental principles and get a formal certification for the foundations of systems. Independent of this classroom education, you will receive also 4 important books. The first book is the best-selling classic Systems and Revolution, from which you can learn all of these concepts and more. The second book is The Science of Everything, that will educate you on how the science of systems is the foundational knowledge of every system in the universe. The third book, Your Body, Your System, focuses on how to understand the interplay of these systems within your own body. And then the fourth book, Your System, Your Life, will help you apply these principles to other aspects of your life, such as running a business, understanding relationships, and more. Beyond the curriculum and books, the second capability is the technologies that you will be afforded. One of them is a powerful Your Body, Your System software, which is an online laboratory where you can use your body as a system to further deepen your understanding of the science of systems. The tool allows you to understand what kind of system you are. Is your system on course or is it off course? And how the inputs of food, supplements, herbs, activities such as sleep, yoga, meditation, exercise can affect your body to bring it back on course. Finally, to support your education, I've also included a seminal scientific paper that I wrote, which will help you understand that the knowledge of systems, it does not only originate in the modern world starting in the 1920s and 30s, but it actually dates back 10 to 20,000 years and intersects directly with the foundations of Eastern systems of medicine. In addition to this, you will also get 2 scientific papers sharing how the science of systems can also be used to apply to understanding how food is medicine. One paper exposes turmeric from the molecular systems level and how it affects your body. The other paper explores ginger and how that affects your body. That's just the educational piece. As you raise your consciousness through this education, you will likely want to connect with other Truth Freedom Health warrior scholars in an environment where you can connect and build community. To support that, I've also created 2 powerful social media tools. One of them is a VA/SHIVA forum. Here you can start discussions, you can pose questions and meet others and have healthy debates. The other is VA/SHIVA Social, where you can create your own profile, your own presence, like other major social media tools. However, it is independent of big tech. You can use VA/SHIVA Social to interconnect with your fellow Truth Freedom Health warrior scholars and build community. Beyond the education capability and the social media capability, the platform also enables you to take action by disseminating your knowledge on the ground and into your local online and offline communities. Powerful educational cards and research are included so you can pass these cards to your friends and neighbors that provide them summarized content which further directs them to online research and education. In addition to this, the activism component also provides you many short 1-minute educational video content, memes, and text, allowing you to quickly craft messages for your Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and other pages so you can deliver content to educate others and drive them to longer educational posts on VA/SHIVA. VA/SHIVA is fundamentally an enabling platform for you to get the truth, freedom, and health you deserve through education, technology, and activism. I hope you become a Truth, Freedom, and Health warrior scholar today. Thank you.
All right, everyone. I wanted to share that with you, but I'm going to be, repeatedly in all the videos I do, as you know, encouraging all of you to become system scientists, get the science of systems. Now, typically, you'd have to go to MIT for how many odd years, or you'd have to go read all these different books, and you have to sort of figure your way out. You don't have to do that. I've put it together in such a way it's accessible to anyone, whether you have any type of education. You don't need to go to MIT. You don't need to know math. You don't need to know physics, because I teach you the fundamentals. And those fundamentals you can use to understand how your body is a system. You can use it to understand how the society is a system. But that grounded knowledge is what is the order of the day right now. The elites want to divide us along every possible way you can imagine and give us a fake solution to whether it's a real or fake problem, okay? And that's where we're headed right now. And that is what you would call the age of darkness. So the only way out of that, the light, comes through education. That's why one of the slogans we have in our movement is get educated or be enslaved, but it's the right education. And that right education, very potent way, is systems education. Tomorrow, I'm going to be talking in detail about what is going on in a fundamental way. Again, another distraction of this guy, Jeff Bezos. You may have seen all these billionaires are launching spaceships everywhere, okay? Why is Bezos doing that? What is really going on at Amazon? And you can go do some of your own homework. We'll talk about it tomorrow. But you realize fundamentally at Amazon that the working people in Amazon are actually starting to unionize, actually starting to come together. And Bezos, essentially profited. He doubled his company's wealth while mom and pop businesses are being shut down. Amazon doubled their wealth. I think he personally went from about $110 billion to $220 billion in net worth. Meanwhile, we'll talk about the devastation that's been happening in Washington and to Amazon workers. But fundamentally, it's about working people uniting. Our movement is about looking at the real problem and finding the real solution, not getting into this nonsense about fake problems, fake solutions, which pit black against white, left against right. Okay? So thank you, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow. I hope this was valuable. Please go become a Truth, Freedom, and Health warrior. We need to build the movement for truth, freedom, and health. Working people unite beyond left and right. Thank you.